back to another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm Susie Selig. Today we are in Connersville, Indiana, and we are at the historic Canal House here. I'm joined by Donna Schroeder. Donna, thank you for having us.
Well, thanks for coming to visit.
Well, this place is absolutely beautiful. So right out of the gate, when and importantly, why was the Canal House built?
The house was built as an office building for the White Water Canal Company. And it was built about 1842. It's one of the most historic and one of the best examples of Greek Revival architecture in the state of Indiana.
Was it all built at the same time?
Originally, this was 4 rooms, 2 down, 2 up, and a cellar. And it was 4 offices. Then when the canal went from Lawrenceburg to Hagerstown, and it was meant to be a really good form of transportation for the people of that day.
Gotcha.
However, it just became almost impossible to maintain. There were droughts, there were floods, and then the railroad came, and so the canal became obsolete. And at that point, it became a bank. About 1854, it became the Savings Bank of Indiana. Then, in 1857, the Vance family bought the house. Okay. And at that point, they built the kitchen on the back because there was no place to cook.
Right.
And so then it became a home rather than an office building.
Okay. And then did it maintain being a home until, did it ever go back to being commercial?
Not exactly commercial. The Vances owned the house from 1857 until about 1837, I believe. Then during that time, it was used as a boarding house and even a veterinary clinic, we've heard. But Dr. Samuel Vance lived here, so I'm sure that he did some of his medical practice here.
Right, makes sense.
Then it was sold to Finley and Alice Green Gray. And Finley was kind of a character. He was our mayor twice. He was a congressman. And they lived here for about 12 years until they both passed away. Then it was given to the Audubon Society because at the time of their deaths, they had given the family farm to the Indiana Audubon Society for use as kind of a nature preserve, a bird sanctuary, and that's what it is now. It's the Mary Gray Bird Sanctuary. They also left the house to the Audubon Society, but they didn't have a use for it, so they sold it to the local Veterans of Foreign Wars, and they had their post here for some time. Then the City Bicentennial was in 1963. Mm-hmm. And some of the local citizens who saw a need to preserve history and our beautiful buildings banded together and formed Historic Connersville Incorporated. And they bought the house from the VFW. And Finley's nephew, Bob Gray, who loved history and, of course, loved the house, did a lot of the restoration on the building itself. A lot of the stonework that you'll see outside. He took away some things that Alice and Finley had added. They had put a balcony on the front, and
right, he took it off.
Yeah, and it wasn't authentic. Bob did a lot of stonework outside and some woodworking in here. He added the dental molding to the fireplace.
Oh.
Because Finley had added the fireplace.
Right.
It was heated by stoves up until then. So the house has some pretty neat features. Of course, you can see it has 12-foot ceilings, but one of the more unique things about the woodwork is if you look at the window casings and the door casings, they taper, and so that, because they become more narrow at the top, is supposed to give you an illusion that the ceilings are even higher than they are.
Wow.
So Historic Connersville met here for quite some time, And it was nice. The VFW had put a meeting room upstairs.
Oh,
so they
cool.
had made 2 rooms into one.
Right.
And we used to meet up there. And then, and in another time, you'll get to see our museum. But when we began having a museum, then it was easier to meet at the museum than upstairs. So now we're going to convert it into a bedroom and a study, and make more for people to see when they come in.
Donna, I'm interested to hear more about this Finley character.
Well, he was a character. Both of their families were early settlers in Fayette County. And when Finley went to Congress, he one of the things that he pushed for was rural electrification. He was pretty progressive, but one of the great stories was that when he decided it was time to update the sewers and the water in town, because they used the canal for a water supply. And Finley took the newspaper and the city council to the canal when he was mayor. And he said, look at this, it's just filthy. And he pointed out a dead pig that was floating in the canal. But most people think that Finley put the dead pig in the canal to begin with, just to make a point. When Carrollton, which is between here and Indianapolis on 52, when their post office was taken away from them, and they were very unhappy. And so Finley lobbied to get their post office back. And they were so grateful that half the people in town wanted to change the name of the town to Finley. And they argued back and forth, and it was kind of a 50-50 thing. And so finally, the government said, fine, you can have it both ways. And when you went to Indianapolis, for years and years, the sign said Carrollton or Finley.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So he was quite the guy. He was just one of a kind.
Yeah.
And they had one child, and I don't believe Mary ever lived here. When they were in Washington, they had one little girl named Mary, and she became ill with diphtheria. And at that point, she was incapacitated after that, and she died at about the age of 30 before both of them died. So when they gave the family farm, then the Audubon Society formed the Mary Gray Bird Sanctuary.
Wow. The piano, you said that was one of the first ones in Fayette County?
Absolutely. Okay. Belonged to a little girl named Susan Goodlander. Her father was a pretty influential guy. Okay. And she had that from the time she was a little girl, and then in the 1850s, and then she grew up and gave lessons on that piano.
Did she?
A lot of the furniture in this house, several of the things are from the Gray family. And when you're in the dining room, you'll see Finley and Alice's dining room table and their china.
Is it their set on the table?
Yes, and their china is on the table.
That is to die for.
Finley's rocking chair is in there.
Oh wait, that's not what I'm on?
No, you're not on Finley's chair. I'm sorry.
All right, well, that's okay.
You're on a chair that actually came, I believe, from the Lake family at Everton.
Is this horsehair that we're sitting on? Is that what this texture
well,
is?
I think it's horsehair. Yeah.
Feels like velvet and horsehair.
Yeah,
it's
very. We have a lot of nice furniture in here.
Yeah, you do.
And,
yes, you do.
And the kitchen's very interesting. It has a washing machine that was manufactured in Connersville.
Really?
Yeah, and you had to roll your clothes back and forth. You had to move the thing back.
Wait, I'm sorry, you had to do what?
Well,
no, explain this, because most people are watching, they're like, we have a washing machine. So what are you talking about?
Well, this washing machine has a crate almost that sets down. You put your clothes in it, set it down in the water. And then it had a handle on it, and you swished them back and forth. The other neat thing in the kitchen is an early Sears cook stove, a wood cook stove from around 1900. It has a built-in waffle iron, which I think is pretty cool.
Do you guys still use it to this day?
No, we do not. And there's a contraption called a weasel in there.
Okay, is that the thing on the far right side of the kitchen? Okay, yeah, what is that?
Well, a weasel was something that women used to, if they were going to make their own yarn and take it to the weaver. Of course, you wanted to know how much you were taking, and it measured the yarn as you rotated it. And every once in a while, after however many revolutions, which I'm not sure of how many it took, it makes a popping noise. And the story is that when little kids would do that for their mother, that's where the song "Pop Goes the Weasel" came from.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so we don't know if that's accurate or not, but it's a good story.
It sounds accurate to me. Donna, there are some significant pieces in this house, so let's just go down the list, talk about them, because they're lovely and people should totally get to see them.
Well, we have 2 grandfather's clocks. One of them belonged to Finley and Alice. One of them belonged to the family of Richard Nash Elliott, who was another congressman from here. Richard Elliott's nieces were Hilda and Marie Sefton, and we owe them a great deal because they left us a nice bequest that made Historic Connersville able to do a lot of things. Another neat thing is the portrait of Thomas Clark. He was he was a fifer in the Civil War, but he was 14 and he was very clever. He became very useful because he was so tiny that they said he could sneak through enemy lines with messages. He was too little to shoot a rifle, but he would go out and gather up the weapons of men that were wounded or killed and drag them back, and so they could be used again.
Now, is 14, is that the appropriate age for war back then? Or
No,
no,
he wasn't. That was not the appropriate age. He was supposed to be 16 to join, but little boys would take a piece of paper that said 16, put it in their shoe, and then when the recruiter said, "Are you over 16?" Well, technically you were over 16 because you were standing on it.
I love it.
So,
don't lie. Don't lie. They didn't lie.
Right. So
that's awesome.
So there are some pretty nice pieces in here.
Yes. All right. Now, is there anything that you particularly that sticks out as one of your favorites? You're allowed to say yes.
I like the hair wreath because it's a memento of a time past when people didn't. It was before photographs, and portraits were expensive, so a lot of times they would keep a piece of their dead relative's hair, and it was woven into a floral
so
piece.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know even know that was a thing.
Yeah, and the kids who come here for tours, we do a lot of tours, and the kids who come here,
they got to think it's wacky.
Well, yeah,
but
they
awesome.
think it's very creepy, but it's cool. That's what they are. It's creepy, but it's cool. So,
that's a good one.
So yeah, and another important thing is the corner cupboard in the kitchen that was also the Gray family's.
Okay.
And it has Mary's china dolls in it. And her mother's her mother was a DAR member and has her memorabilia in it. So.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Donna, is it open to the public?
It is. It's we're always open during events downtown.
Okay.
People can call us at 765-825-0946 and schedule tours. Okay. And we do a lot with the kids, with the school classes. So because there's a lot of Indiana and local history to be learned in this house.
Oh, absolutely. I'll bet they have a blast when they come here.
They do.
I know that I just did.
Well, good.
So thank you. Thank you for watching another episode of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm your host, Susie Selleck. Today we were in Connersville, Indiana, here at the historic Canal House. Donna Schroeder, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks again for coming.
Well, and remember,
travel slowly
and
stop often.
Bye for now.